Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Chasing Justice. This is the official launching of our Going Live, and we will be bringing you these type of stories so that you know what's going on in your community and in your nation. I am here in the house of Brandon McLeod. Actually, it's the house of his grandmother, Dorothy Chappelle, and no one has been in this room since August of 2005. This room has been closed, it's been sealed since Brandon was killed. In the early mornings in August of 2005, two detectives entered into the Chappelle home and they gunned 15-year-old Brandon McLeod down in his bedroom. We decided to come here and ask permission to enter into this room to show you what the room looks like and why the officers felt they were in danger from a 15-year-old boy with a knife who, I quote, leapt out of his closet. So I want you to take note of the room as we go in. No one's been in this room since it happened. There are some items missing from the room, and I know this to be true. I was able to attend an inquest at the coroner's office, and so they took certain items out of his room to help make the inquest more understandable for those of us that attended. I know there's an ironing board that's missing out of this room because there was an ironing board in the room. There was clothes in the room, and they're no longer here either. So walk with me and let's listen to what Brandon McLeod has to say about what happened at 5 a.m. on that August morning in 2005. Walk with me. This is the first time anyone has been able to enter this room, and I've been given the privilege of coming into this room. I'm here to speak for Brandon. Brandon's not here to speak for himself. He was obviously a very normal kid. He had a very messy room. Look at the TV, look at the clock, look at the fan and the telephone, everything in the same place. There was an ironing board, to my recollection from the inquest, where I'm standing. So if you look where I'm standing here up against this wall, take note there was an ironing board here where Brandon had ironed his clothes for school for the next day. And in ironing his clothes, he had left them here on the ironing board. That was one of the items that I know that they took for the inquest. So take note at how coming into this very small room, an ironing board is here, and two Cleveland police officers entered into this room at 5 a.m. while Brandon was asleep. Within moments of them entering into the room, gunfire had held. The officers' testimony is that they were in fear of their lives. Two armed police officers in full body gear, trained with Glocks, were afraid for their lives. Not to mention that one of the officers who shot and killed Brandon, Officer Detective Habib, was a trained military person. He had been in the military, he had served our country, and now was a Cleveland police officer. Let's look at how much space was in this room with an ironing board here for two police officers to come into this room and be able to gun Brandon down. Keep in mind, one of the bullets entered the top of Brandon's head, which suggests that Brandon was in a position like this when he was shot. This is the closet. That's always been the question that I need you to answer. I can't answer this question. I can only be reasonable in my own thought process. But the question I have is, look at this closet. This closet, the size of this closet, they said this child leapt out of this closet with a knife in his hand at 5 a.m. to attack two Cleveland police officers he wasn't expecting to be in his bedroom. Is that a reasonable thought process to you? Brandon's blood is still on the floor. Maybe even part of his brain is on the floor. Look at the shoes. But look at the closet He leapt out of this closet, so they say. But take note where the blood is on the floor. I'm no detective, but I'm a very intelligent person. If Brandon had leapt out of the closet the way they said, I would think that if he was in this position and he leapt up out of the closet with this knife, that the blood would have splattered up against this wall. This appears to me that Brandon may have been sitting in this position because the blood is pooled in the closet on the floor where he fell over. I'm just using reason. Where's the blood splatter from this child, his brain on the wall? It's lacking, it's missing. It's not here. Do you see any blood on the wall? Do you see any brain matter on the wall? All of this is clear. But the Cleveland Police Department, the mayor's office, and the judges allowed these officers to get away with murder. This is the most telling time for people in this country. We now have an opportunity to elect governors, state legislators, county judges, people who can make a change and protect the public. If Brandon had received justice, and he did not, his family never received a dime from the city, nothing for wrongful death. The judges that heard the case said that the police officers were operating within reasonable actions. Is this reasonable to you? Does this make sense to you that a closet so small he could have leapt out of, and why would he be sitting there at 5 a.m. with a steak knife in his hand waiting to attack the police? Does this make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me. I'm asking you to look at this room of a teenager. Brandon was no saint. Everyone knows he wasn't a saint. But Brandon had a right, a constitutional right, to be taken before a jury and to be tried, and if found convicted, to go to jail. That was his right. His rights were infringed upon. This room it's a time capsule. It's been stopped in time. Brandon is still here, and he's still crying for justice. If they had given Brandon justice, would Tanisha Anderson still be alive? Would Timothy and Melissa, 137 bullets, would they still be alive? What about Timothy Loman, who killed Tamir Rice within seconds? Much like what the officers testified to, that they entered into the room and that they said to Brandon to drop the knife, but within seconds they shot him. Within seconds, 2 trained, fully armed police officers shot a 15-year-old boy in his bed. And if you look at where the blood is, it doesn't appear that he was leaping out of a closet. It appeared he may have even been sitting on the side of the bed and fell forward when he was shot. At least that's what it looks like to me. What does it look like to you? I'm here to speak for Brandon because Brandon is not here to speak for himself. We have to change the injustice that's happening to us. We have to speak up. We have to speak out. This child's blood demands it. It requires justice. If I can hear his blood crying, I know God does. Why don't you? I'm asking everyone to share this video. Take it viral. You be the judge. Were the judges just in their decision not to prosecute these police officers? Now, here's what I want you to keep in mind. One of the officers, Detective Cranick, is now currently under investigation from Internal Affairs. They found racist text messages in his cell phone. The city not only let them get away with this, the judges not only let them get away with this, but they brought them back, they paid them, they allowed them to advance and still serve the people of the city. They've been getting paid.
And now again, since 2005, when Brandon was killed, Officer Koenig has been found to have racist text messages in his cell phone. Now, mainstream media reported it once, but they didn't expound on it and why it's significant for us to know this. It is significant for us to know this because Brandon was an African American male, 15 years old, gunned down in his own bedroom by that officer. Look at the size of this room. I remember the morning when I saw it. I've been devastated and I've been captured by what happened to Brandon. Nothing has ever changed for me since 2005 when Brandon was killed. I've never forgotten him. I think of him, and especially when I hear about someone being killed at the hands of a police officer, and a police officer not being tried for his crimes. We, the taxpayers, continue to fund them. We continue to give them a salary and health benefits and support their families. Yes, police officers' lives matter. Don't get me wrong. I believe police officers' lives matter, but police officers that infringe upon the rights, the constitutional rights of American citizens don't matter. We have to push for legislation by our state legislators, by our congressmen, our Senate, by our president, by our governors, to change the laws to protect the citizens of this country. Why don't we know if these officers have been drinking? Why don't we know if they had been on alcohol and drugs when this happened? Or how about what happened to Timothy, with Timothy Loehmann? Was he stable? We know he wasn't from some accounts. But the question still remains. Why aren't legislators passing legislation to protect us? And I want everyone to understand that the protection is a contract agreement. A contract agreement which is made across the country throughout this nation with police unions, not to prosecute the officers. Contract, not law, contract. There are certain things that cannot be held against a police officer. And a police officer must say that he was in danger and had to make a split of the moment decision. We know millions of police officers have made split moment of the minute decisions without killing anyone. We know this because it happens every day. These incidents are considered isolated. Isn't one enough? Let's look at Brandon again. Let's look at him. Let's bring him justice in some kind of form or fashion. State legislatures, I ask of you to start working on bills that will protect the public, the people who vote you in office, that you have a duty to protect from any criminal. This is criminal. This child, 15 years old, who made some bad mistakes, who now could be about 28. Who knows? He might have graduated from college. He might be a dad now. He might even be a police officer himself. But we'll never know, will we? Look at the pool of blood. Look at where the blood didn't splatter. Not where it did, but where it didn't splatter. If he leapt up out of the closet, as they say, he was here. He leapt up out of the closet and you shot me. I would think that there would be blood splatter behind me where I was standing and not on the floor where it pooled. You be the judge. This is Mariah Crenshaw, and I am chasing justice. Chase justice with me. Share this video. Get angry, get mad, ask questions, make phone calls, write letters, send emails. God, text these people because we're in an age of technology. But don't let Brandon die. Don't let justice die. Chase justice with me. Thank you for joining me today. This is Mariah Crenshaw. Thank you.